So I'm going to, so today is September 15th, 2024, and I'm going to continue to talk about God's faithfulness. So my thought here today, I call this the linearity of life. So that word linearity, I mean, that's a technical term. It's not something we use in everyday language, uh, but that's just the way I think that way. Um, and sometimes it's not good that I think that way. I think sometimes it serves me well. But I tend to think and sequentially, like if I'm solving problems, I always think of algebra. When we learned algebra, you do this. If you solve an equation, you start, you do this, you work your way down the page. It's a linear, it's a progression, a linear progression, to solve the equation. And I think that's a lot of what engineers do. That's the way we're taught. That's what we're trained. It's just implanted into our thought process to think that way. So I think with all that being said, I think of the linearity of life. What I mean by that is, so if you, and I'm using hindsight to say this, but life, if you think about life, you have your teenage years, you have your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, and then I would say 50 plus. And as you move through those seasons or periods of life, they're just highs and lows. If you can visualize like a graph, as you move through your teenage years and your 20s and your 30s, life is just a series of highs and lows, failures and successes. And when I think of my life, my teenage years, that's when I came to know Christ. My parents came to know Christ as adults, and they helped me and my siblings come to know Christ. But then in my 20s, I kind of ran away from Christ. I wouldn't say it was a conscious decision, but I just made my own decisions. I didn't consult. I didn't talk to God. I just kind of led life on my terms, and that kind of spilled over into my 30s, and it wasn't really until my 40s when I came back to Christ. I had a renewal or a rekindling of my relationship to Jesus, and but when I look back at all this, so I changed. With everything I just said there, I changed, but what didn't change was God. God's faithfulness, because I can tell you stories of in those periods of my life where God was with me. I know He was with me. And again, I'm using hindsight to say this, but He protected me. He spoke to me in still small ways, but but God didn't change, and He doesn't change, and that, to me, that's His faithfulness. That everything around me can change. I can change. I can make choices. I can make decisions. I can have highs and I can have lows. So I vary. I can vary. There's variation in me. The young adult that I am, as a teenager, I will be, I'm going to change into, I'm going to change. My environment changes. Things around me change. And I mean, that's to be expected. We know that. But what doesn't change is God and His faithfulness. And so if you're a teenager or a 20-year old and you're watching this, I just want you to know that God doesn't change. So I would encourage you to just to seek to know Him. Put your trust in Him. Trusting God with your heart, and let Him direct your paths. And if you're older and you're hearing this, well, you probably know a lot of what I'm talking about here. I mean, you can look back at your life and you can speak to your highs and lows, and I hope that I hope you know that God is faithful to you. But if you don't, then maybe this can make you um, turn and put your trust in God. But I just know in my own life, I can speak to that. And so so it's the linearity of life, the ebbs and the flows, the highs, the lows, you know, that that's just part of life. But what doesn't change is God's faithfulness to us. So hopefully you find this helpful, and I hope you have a blessed day.